Greetings, everybody. This is the first episode of the Pixel Pie podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. The goal of this podcast is going to be to, basically just do what I would do normally in real life, which is just meet people with like-minded sort of attitudes towards a hobby, that being retro gaming. My sort of gateway to it has been Game Boys. And yeah, it sort of occurred to me that there's a community out there that's teaching everybody how to and what with. But sometimes we often wonder, I wonder why people are doing all this. And so over the period of however long I can keep up the steam or people are interested, I'll continue to stalk people on Instagram and then contact them. And if they're willing to come on and share their kind of story on who they are behind the Instagram sort of profile, then I think we're going to get to meet some pretty interesting people and probably find out we have a lot more in common than just retro gaming. And hello, thank you for joining me for this first episode of the Pixel Pie podcast. I'm going to crack straight into it. And with me today, I have Jordan, aka on Instagram, Retrogaming Dad. And I'm just going to crack straight into it and just say, g'day, Jordan. How you doing, mate?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. Thanks so much for the opportunity to talk with you on here. I'm really excited to join you and just talk about retro games, what we're all about, you know?
Yeah, I know, right? It's firstly, I will say this is the first episode. I've already got a name for this episode. It's the Maiden Voyage. Not always historically not always the wisest journey to go on. So I applaud your courage for stepping up for this first one.
Yeah.
And yeah,
absolutely. I was excited. Like I said,
after you, mate.
This delay is going to be fun to work with.
Yeah. Well, for those that are out there,
be interesting.
Yeah, it's currently 2 p.m. in Australia on Sunday, and it's 8 p.m. in the US where Jordan is on Saturday. So this little ants are running back across the wire here to make this happen. So amazing technology. So go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, when you first sent me the message about joining up, I was really excited to hear about it. And then you sent me, what the image looked like with the pixel pie, and I just loved everything about it. I'm all about that pixelage and just everything about this. I'm really excited. So yeah, Maiden Voyage, it's a little risky sometimes calling it that, but I'm excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, cool. My intention with this is if you look on any kind of podcast platform, there's a plethora of retro gaming stuff. And like I sort of explained in the preamble with this particular episode, there's a lot of how to do it. There's a lot of how to drop in a screen or how to recap your game gear and stuff like that. And this is what you need, and these are the tools. But for me, these kinds of hobbies have always been about, what do I have in common with someone? Like, surely there's someone else that's bought 15 Game Boys in the last 6 months and is willing to admit it, So what makes us all tick? And I was never really able to go to any kind of big conventions. I know in the US and, in the UK, there's a lot of those sort of things, Midwest gaming, and there's one in, they're all over the place. You guys have just got so much, but we also forget that it takes about 24 hours to drive anywhere, sort of thing. So but it's accessible, and we haven't had that. So the way the world is at the moment, this is as good as it gets. Catching up, like I said, it's a bit like we've just bumped into each other at a bar, and we happen to have something in common. So with all that said and done, tell us what you're all about, mate, like maybe your occupation and things like that, and where you think what your lifestyle links into retro gaming and how it either makes your life better or worse in some ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm 31. So I was born in 1989, right at the end of the 80s. So I just kind of snuck in there as an 80s baby, but most of my youth was obviously throughout the 90s. And so Nintendo reigned supreme for me all growing up, right? The Game Boy, the Game Boy Color, really my love for the console started with the Nintendo 64. You know, I had the NES and I had the SNES, but the N64 was really kind of what captured me there. And so I always loved it, you know, all growing up. And then I kind of, as I got a little older in my teens, I faded out of it a little bit. And it was always there. I loved Legend of Zelda. I love Pokemon, everything that has to do with it. And it just kind of went away. You know, I became an adult, and all the
alcohol and girls and
responsibilities
parties and stuff.
all those things. Yeah, you know, all those things. Yeah,
yeah, that's right.
Did all that, and then after I got married, and I would even say within the last couple of years, I got the Nintendo Switch, and it was like it kind of like reinvigorated my love of gaming. So I went out and I grabbed my old GameCube, I grabbed my Nintendo 64, I figured out how to connect it to the modern TVs, and I just dove right in. And then specifically when it came to starting the Retrogaming Dad account, it really happened because of COVID, to be honest with you. I needed something to do in the midst of the nothingness that of lockdown, and so I just kind of discovered it, and it started with, you know, me finding Greg on Game Changer mods and just following him, and I think from there it kind of went to like you know, Adam Jamesy Plays. I fell in love with his designs and everything like that, and just kind of built. And you know, like you said, for me it's less about the collecting necessarily and the how to, and more about the community is really what it became about, you know. And I talk with Kelly and T from Canada 24/7. I talk to those guys probably every day. And it's less about the how do we do things and just more getting to know each other. So I've been really fortunate to have gained, you know, the community that I've found online. And I was surprised. I was completely surprised by it. I did not expect it whatsoever. So that's kind of a little bit about how I got into the actual Instagram account. But other than that, I'm a teacher. I'm a high school teacher. I teach English primarily, and it's about it. Wife and a kid, and one on the way we're excited about.
Oh, wow.
So,
The Switch has been a big kind of a big deal in some ways, hasn't it? Well, in a lot of ways, but what way it's been a big deal is the way I think it's reminded a bunch of people of, you know, how good things were. And even though the Switch is always like HD remakes, and this year there's like a Metroid anniversary, and there's a Castlevania anniversary, and there's a this and that, and they bring back, you know, they bring out like collections and things like that. But I think a lot of people have probably gone, oh, hang on, I used to play this on the Game Boy. Don't I have one of them in a box full of stuff up in the attic or down in the cupboard and drag stuff out? And I think a lot of people have started to realize, I can have that shiny new, but it's still pretty rad the way it was. You know, you just got to put it under a light so you can kind of get the right viewing angle and things like that. How do I don't know, probably due to COVID, you've had to, this is when it kind of has really kicked off for you, but also as a teacher, you may not have had that normal sort of in-class interaction you normally would. So you haven't had that ability to sort of go to class with a Game Boy and sort of sit at the front of the room, wait for him to file in, and then go, what's that? And you tell them, and they're like, whoa, does it run on Steam or what? You know, so I guess you're kind of missing out on that opportunity. As a teacher, like how is the whole sort of teaching from home and COVID and stuff? How's it work for you?
It was at the beginning. It was so hard. I mean, we could barely get students to log in. We couldn't get them to do assignments. We couldn't whatever. And as it kind of progressed, it got better, right? The kids got used to it. They got into the routine. We got into our routine. You know, we're not managing 36 to 45 students in a room, but I'm managing 36 kids on a computer in a virtual space. So
must be a nightmare, people making noises and putting on the cat faces and all sorts of stuff.
You know what? I thought it was going to be like that. It's like the complete opposite. Like I'm pulling teeth to get students to talk about stuff. And it's been really interesting. Like normally, you're right, I would have expected just that. And maybe if they're a little younger, I think that happens. But most of my students are 16, 17, 18 years old. And so they kind of just if they care about school, they show up and they want to work. If they don't care about school, then they turn their computer on and fall asleep, you know.
Fair enough.
And so it's been interesting. I would say that I've probably become a little bit better of a teacher, you know, in a different way. I've had to experiment and try new things and think about stuff differently. And I think that that's going to transition to me being a better teacher when I go back in the classroom.
Well, I guess you haven't been able to fall back on those sort of normal social cues and body language that you would be able to have. You know, you can't throw a duster, so you've just got to you've got to learn to just maintain the rage and keep them engaged as best you can. You know, so it's probably going to change your entire sort of content, the way you deliver. Well, you know, you guys got a curriculum, but at the same time, you've got to channel that down the right ways. Yeah, cool. So as far as the sort of modding, and do you mod and sort of move a few on, do you, the Game Boys and things like that?
Yeah, I really focus on modding, and I went into it thinking I was going to sell more of them than I actually do. Yeah,
everybody does.
I really was like, okay, I'm going to build this one, and okay, how much did it cost me? How much would I need to sell it for to make some money to build it? And then it just kind of like, well, I don't want to let go of this one. I really like this one. So, you know,
it's my favorite.
And so I've kind of amassed a collection of them over time, and you know, it started off with just kind of some easy shell swaps and nothing too crazy, but then as we've gone along, and you know, as it's progressed, one of the biggest players for me at this point is Player Wave Tony. He does all these really crazy cool UV printed shells where all these artists are able to submit their art and have these crazy cool things. And so now I'm going more into that unique shell route along with everything, and I really like how it provides me this kind of uniqueness within everything, you know.
There's a real there's a real bespokeness to, you know, the myriad of colors of buttons. And I think what amazes me the most is I bought I've got a blue SP that I bought about maybe 3 years ago, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be rad, and I bought it. It's a 001, so the screen's fairly terrible. And I pulled it out and I was like, well, I'm 40 at the time. I was like 43, 44, and I was like, I can't bloody see that. That's ridiculous. It's in box, like it's in really great shape. So, and it was like $120. Like you wouldn't, you'd pay double that now. That's bonkers. So anyway, I popped it away. And I looked around at screen transplants and doing even like a 101 to an 001, and there's all sorts of ribbon, and you know, Ben Venn and all these guys were like, yeah, it can be done, but it's just screens out of China are too expensive, blah blah blah. Man, the last 6 months, it seems to me, there's like a new screen every freaking like 3 weeks. There is just, they are just churning out a screen. And
I just saw it today.
And just not even Game Boys. You know, there's like you know, Neo Geo Pocket and Game Gears and just everything. It's just going bonkers. It's a really great time to be alive. But I think that most people agree the problem is it's trying to get hold of the Game Boys now. There's even the trash ones. People are like, hey,
that's
these things are cool again, and I'm gonna sell mine, sort of thing.
That's where it's funny. I tried to find them locally. That's kind of where I try to find most of mine, because in my head, local people, they might not know, you know, other than people that are online. And then I look on Facebook and they're like, people want $100 for a Game Boy that's half decent that you can maybe get on eBay for 40, you know. And so I was surprised at that a little bit, but I think now I'm at the point where if I can get a solid Game Boy Color for less than $50, I'm like, that's a steal. I'm gonna snag that one. Which it is crazy, because even at the start of 2020, if I found one for $15, I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna grab that, you know. But at this point, it's so hard to find those that you know, the total cost of a mod ends up being, you know, $150 easy if you don't want to get anything too crazy.
And that's not including your time, which becomes, it sort of balances out because you're doing it because you like to tinker and you like to sort of get in front of your bench and you put on some music and whatever, and you kind of open this thing up and you make it new again. So I when I first I bought my first one, which is this white GBA, and I was sort of explaining to someone, and I'm like, have you ever seen that movie Gone in 60 Seconds? They're like, a younger guy. And he's like, no. I said, well, it's about this Mustang called Eleanor that it was a 70s movie, and it's like 10 minutes of intro, and then it's like an hour and a half of just hard driving. Anyway, so you've got this Mustang that just gets the living crap beat out of it. And then they did the remake with Nicolas Cage and Jolie and stuff. And I'm like, this is the original Mustang, the Shelby, and this is the one they redid. So you can see they're similar, but they've been up-spec'd. And this one will probably destroy that one in so many ways, but it's still a Mustang, and now it's mine. It's sort of thing, So I know some people are a bit like, oh, you can't do this to an original one, you can't do that, and it's like, I don't know, if you're keeping them alive and you're conserving them, and there's ways of pulling stuff out and putting it in a bag, and you can bring it back. So So your kind of curve, was it just sort of like a few shells and then you sort of like found a few screens? You'd been doing like amp mods or noise power filters or whatever?
I really had done nothing. I had done absolutely nothing. I had my original Kiwi colored Game Boy Color, and I just kind of have always kept it and always wanted to kind of keep it pristine. And I had bought an Atomic Purple one at one point in time, and I think my first screen, I'm trying to think, I think my first screen was a Benven one. Right. Right when it came out with the Freckle Shack, I had pre-ordered a Freckle Shack, and I saw this thing. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. A backlit Game Boy Color. I just bought a worm light for my original, to barely see it. And so I bought that, and it started kind of with the drop-ins, and I didn't have a soldering iron. I had never done any sort of electronic work ever in my life. And I always wanted to, but I never had a reason. And so then as things got a little bit more complicated, I started seeing screens and different mods that you could solder. I was like, well, I should probably get a soldering iron and try to figure this out. So I'm watching some tutorials online. I know Joe Bleeps did a lot of like soldering tutorials that I watched a lot of his. And so it just kind of evolved from there. And I'm a pretty quick learner. I'm a teacher, so I kind of figured out how to learn things really quickly. And so I think because of my kind of desire to learn it, it just kind of evolved really quickly. And I was able to dive pretty deeply into some, still pretty simple in the grand scheme of things, but complicated for me, and I just kept trying things out, and I bought a practice board. And so I think because of that, I've tried doing a couple sound mods here. I got Helder's clean power amp at one point in time on a GBA, and I did that. And so it's mostly just for me experimental, really. I see something new, and maybe I'll try that out and see how it goes. And typically I'm careful enough that I don't butcher it.
I guess when they were $15 a Game Boy, it wasn't as detrimental.
It wasn't. But and now that it's 50, I kind of plan it out more. And I would say too, I think I've become better at knowing what to buy, when to buy it. Right at the beginning, I was like, okay, I'm going to buy all these things, and then I get it, and I'm like, oh crap, now I need to buy all these things that I didn't think about. So I was multiple packages every other week of me trying to cobble together something. And now I've kind of streamlined it. I can look at something and know, oh, okay, I just need to buy to buy a speaker, and I need to buy X, Y, and Z. And, so I think that's gotten a little easier over time. But
we've got some really good resellers in Australia, but regardless, you're still the victim of like almost anything I order from the US is close on 3 to 4 weeks before I get it. And shipping is almost anything I buy from the US, doesn't matter what size, it's going to cost me about 25 to 30 Australian, unless I want it in 6 to 8 weeks sort of thing. And when I want it soon. Like, I know the difference between $25 and $38 is not very much when you want it in 3 weeks instead of 6. So like I just recently, I've got the X Station mod for the PS1, and I just yesterday ordered the GC loader for a GameCube, and it's like, oh, I'll just forget about it for 4 weeks. It'll just turn up and I'll be like, yay, it's so good. So stuff.
Yeah, pretty early on when Natalie the nerd, she is a genius. She's amazing.
Good egg.
And when she first started saying that she was working on the Flex PCB for the LEDs, for the buttons and everything, her and I were messaging back and forth, and we ended up swapping. I polish up. I don't know if you've seen. I polish up like clear shells and make them it like incredibly clear, like you can see right through them.
Yeah,
and so she wanted one of those. I wanted one of hers. And so I just polished up a shell and sent it her way. She already got hers. According to this, she shipped it, I think, February 1st, and it's still processing in the Australian airport. So
my goodness.
Yeah, who knows? Man. Who knows when or if I'm going to get that, but whatever.
It's probably on a boat somewhere, because I see that a lot where it'll say, processing center, Michigan, Wisconsin, or whatever. And then boom, I get 2 weeks later, get a thing on my little app for the Australia Post. It's like, this is coming today. Like, oh, cool. And everything kind of like drops into place. Yeah. I know before you sort of said collecting maybe wasn't your main focus, but you also said that I got my first one and then I never wanted to let it go. And that's kind of, it happens, right? So maybe can you tell us a little bit about kind of what collecting does for you, and kind of like what sort of stuff do you look for? And this sort of changes, I would say, too, for me. Like 1 week, all I want is every color that ever existed. And the next week, I love a micro. The 30th or 20th anniversary, I'm like, I can't afford that. I'll just go back to buying cheap colors, So
yeah. I think I do tend to go towards more of the cheaper color things. I haven't quite dove deep into the a complete in-box type of thing yet. For whatever reason, it's never really, I don't know why, that's never really done it for me. I think my thing is I just hang on to stuff. I have my original GameCube with the Game Boy Advance player and the original disc in its packaging. It's like even though I could have gotten rid of it at any point in time, I just couldn't do it. I looked at it, I'm like, maybe I should sell it. No, I can't. I
good
just
move.
Really
especially the disc.
want to keep all those things.
The discs are hard to get hold of.
And I have, they really are, and they're outrageously expensive. I mean, they just are. For like a Super Mario Sunshine, it's impossible to find something that's reasonably priced at this point in time.
But even the Game Boy player, the disc that comes with that.
Yeah. It's wild how expensive that disc is, and that's why I was so lucky to make sure I kept mine.
Smart. All right, sorry, go on.
So I was just saying, I really don't at this point try to spend a ton of money on expensive things. If I find something that I just can't pass it up for whatever reason. I know that there's an account, Game Boys in the Wild. He's holding onto a yellow PCB pocket for me. I didn't even know that existed until last year. I had no idea. And so that I'm kind of waiting on that one. And that's probably going to be, one of my more rare things in my collection. But otherwise, I'm really just holding on to just some of these different colors and like the Boxy Pixel. I love all of the Boxy Pixel stuff.
Don't even start me.
Aluminum, amazing. I invested in a Game Boy Color Boxy Pixel, and I was like, this is going to be the one. Like, I'm going to hold on to this forever. I know that I am, and I love it, and I've loved it ever since. And then I was just trying to figure out, well, what's my next one going to be? And then I committed to the Game Boy, the macro.
Oh my gosh.
And it's beautiful, and it's the one in my collection. It's like, that's the one. Like every time, like, oh, this is the one. And then the next one, oh no, this is the one, is kind of how it became. And but yeah, I think that the gold macro, the gold and black macro, is probably my favorite at this point in time. But in a month, a new one's gonna pop up, and that's gonna be the one.
Yeah, I don't know what color. Like I've got my eye on the macro. I've had all I need for the macro has been in my cart several times, and I'm like, do I go gold? I really like the blue. Like, oh my goodness. And it's also about stock. Sometimes it's just certain colors. The blue one isn't as popular, even though I like it the most. So, and then there's that. SP Unhinged. Like that thing's just
Oh,
bonkers,
it's amazing. Yeah,
bonkers gorgeous.
and between Boxy Pixel and Mako, right, working with Retro CNC on theirs, and
Yeah,
I think that it's cool how quickly things are innovating now.
yeah,
It's,
yeah,
we have this one with what's next, and I like how they're challenging themselves to come up with new and cool things. And like I said,
yeah,
Natalie, with all of her things that she's creating, and the DMG
yeah,
103s, and it's just so cool. It's
yeah.
just so cool,
Yeah,
you
I
know.
agree. I for up until a few years ago, I had a bit to do with like drones. I suppose we call them like the fixed wing and the little 250 race quads and stuff. And there was just this bonkers explosion. It was like screens were like flight controllers, a little board that does all the work. And it was like every 2 months there was a new
Yeah,
board, there was a new controller. It was 3 or 4 big players. There was a bunch of people knocking stuff off, and there was just so much innovation. And a lot of that actually, because there was this like whole nasty like, oh, those drones are gonna get us all banned from everything. And then the kind of you'd see the technology would kind of float back into the old school kind of flight controls, keeping things, you put an airplane up, it's got flight, it sort of stays stable. And now you can teach
yeah,
your 8-year-old to fly your plane without them
yeah,
wrecking at first go. And it's very similar. There's just this layer upon layer of just, whether it be mostly aesthetic, it doesn't really matter, because it makes us happy. And
yeah.
that's important.
That's it.
Yeah. So do you have other, you said you had the GameCube, but any other let's stay with retro for the moment, gaming that you either collect or you just like to, because I've got like a few consoles, and my problem is I have way too much. I'm big on flash carts. I'm like, oh, there's actually too much choice now, but I still like to sit down with something and crack it out. Do you have much like that to sort of have a go?
I mean, I only have one flash cart really, and I just got it not too long ago, a couple weeks. Um, and everything else, I've just had all the original cartridges from
Mm,
when they originally came out. And
mm,
so other than Game Boy, I've got the GameCube and the Nintendo 64, and those are primarily just the ones that I have. But I still have Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask,
mm,
Diddy Kong Racing, Mario
mhm.
Kart. I mean, all of
Yeah,
those kind of
yeah.
classic Nintendo things are the things that I kind of hold on to. But I mean, outside of retro gaming things, the only thing that I really collect or kind of hold on to, and this is totally not connected whatsoever, is I love the Lord of the Rings.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I
yeah.
just love it.
It's all
And
related in
so,
one way, because it's like it's all about going somewhere else and forgetting
yeah,
about. Yeah.
yeah. And so I think I read The Hobbit when I was in the 5th grade for the first time. Our teacher kind of read it to us, and I just fell in love with the story. And so ever
Mm,
since then, if I'm at a bookstore, if I'm at a whatever, and I
mm.
see an edition or a version of it that I don't have, I buy it. And so it's just
Wow.
kind of like, it's been one of those things that over time I've collected various different ones. Like I'm in my workspace right now, and I've got my old edition that I've read through so many times the pages are worn. And
Oh, nice.
I it's just one of those things. I love the Lord of the Rings. I love the Hobbit. My wife got me this cool. I'm from Washington State. My wife got me this cool hand-drawn map that somebody did in the style of the Tolkien maps of Washington State.
Oh, wicked.
I mean, it's just things. Yeah, everything about that. I just love. I was absorbed by it as a young age, and
Yeah.
I read this thing the other day that was saying that being an adult just means you can circle back to everything you loved
Oh,
as a kid and not feel
yeah.
ashamed about it.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. And you've got the budget.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah. I'm kind of like
Yeah,
currently,
exactly. You can finally afford.
yeah, that's right. I'm currently kind of living the childhood I never had. I sort of grew up out in the country in Australia. I can remember sort of going into Sydney as kind of like one of the biggest cities in Australia, and going Saturday morning cartoons and things like that. And I can remember having a couple of little small kind of
Mm,
like, not even LCD games, kind of like little red LEDs behind a screen, a baseball thing or something like that.
yeah,
And it wasn't until about grade 7, which is sort of like our first year of high school over here, I had a Commodore 64, and I was typing in go to and blah blah blah, and my mum bought it like out of a local kind of like a marketplace group thing off a paper,
yeah,
and where there's a bunch of discs, and I was just like, this is amazing. So we did that for a few years, but then I had no electronic gaming kind of, growing up as a teenager. a lot of my friends had a PlayStation or a SNES, and you're kind of like, oh, this is pretty cool, but I'm terrible at this, so I'm not going to go
Yeah.
there. And I am a terrible gamer. I'm at least the third worst gamer in the world. I just like to experience and enjoy. Like I love to paint, but that does not look like a boat, mate.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a boat to me. And it wasn't until about 11 or 12 years ago, and my parents-in-law gave my wife and I a Wii. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then we're just like everybody else, we're playing tennis and rock band and,
Yeah.
archery and stuff like that. And then I think it's probably in the last 3 or 4 years, there's a pretty good arcade scene here in Brisbane. And I sort of started that. And then I guess again with COVID, it's like, well, I still like this. I'm going to kind of do it from home. And now I've just bought a bunch of consoles and Game Boys, and it's just living the childhood I didn't get to. But for most people like yourself, 89, I mean, that was the peak. You were born.
Yeah.
You were born to do this. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, exactly. I really do feel fortunate, and that sounds really silly, I think, right? Like I feel fortunate that I had that type of gaming experience, but I really did, and it was kind of transformational at the time, and I didn't really think much of it. I was like, I just love this game, and but now you look back and you're like, oh, Ocarina of Time is the best game ever made. Yeah, probably. That's why I loved it so much, and that's why it had such an impact on me.
Yeah.
And I think I truly and honestly think the Switch kind of reignited that for me.
100%.
I play Super Smash Brothers Ultimate all the time, and all it did is it brought me back to playing Melee, and those muscle memories from playing that game, it just came back instantly. I didn't have to think anything of it. I just got back into it. So yeah, it's kind of a core of my being in a way. So, and like you said earlier, it just makes me happy. That's all it comes down to.
Yeah. So the Instagram retrogaming_dad. So obviously being a dad's a big deal, and you've got one, and you said you've got another on the way, and so you really identify as a retro gaming dad.
Yeah, I truly do. And I was kind of talking to my wife about this. I always knew I was going to be a dad one day. Like it wasn't like, oh, maybe I'll have kids. It's like, no, I'm going to have kids. Like I like kids. I like being around kids. I enjoy, the growing up and teaching and all of those things. And so I knew that I was going to be a dad one day. And so I've got a 3-year-old son. He'll be 4 here pretty soon. And he's just now starting to like really want to play games. Like he's into Tony Hawk Pro Skater for the N64. We've been playing that almost daily for the past month. He's like, can we, once you're done with work, can we go play Tony Hawk Pro Skater? I'm like, yes, Hudson.
Yes, we can. Play it. God bless you, son. I love you.
Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty hilarious to see all that. But yeah, I mean, being a dad, I love it. I think it's something that's been, I knew it was going to happen, and I try to be the best dad that I possibly can. You get mad every once in a while, I get annoyed, but it's whatever. You get over it, and it's a teaching moment for the kids,
and for you got a lot of, as a dad.
He's got a lot of big feelings that he's got to work through. So I'm trying to do that.
It is challenging. I know, like my daughter and I, probably our first game experience was Skylanders on the PS3, and I totally see where that works, because you get the thing, it's Amiibo looking thing, and stick it on the dealio, and you swap them out for different sort of situations. And it was really fun. And at the time, like my daughter's 9 now, so this would have been probably 3 or 4 years ago, when the dexterity wasn't quite there, and you just kind of got to follow him around and let him just, you're watching him play Tony Hawk, he's probably just bashing into stuff and falling over, and he's terrible, but he's like, I'm doing this, and this is, and I'm manipulating time and space, and that's all great. And you kind of let him do that. And then as the deck, we start playing a bit of Sackboy and the Big Little Planet 2 and things like that, a bit 2D platforming and that timing and stuff. And I think, it gets a bad rap, the whole game. And yes, if your kid's doing it 23 hours a day and forgetting to eat and breathe, you've got problems. But at the end of the day, it's a really good way to kind of sit with your child and share imagination. And it helps you to remember that it still is fun, regardless of, people break controllers, and that's fine. but it's just supposed to be a bit of fun. These days, my daughter and I play, she's into Roblox and Adopt Me, and that's kind of fine because she's learning some stuff. But we play a lot of Minecraft together. She's on the PC and I'm on the PS4.
Yeah.
And she was sick last week at home a couple of days, and I can go to work and come home. She's like, got some stuff to show you, Dad. And she is just like, it's like, we're like,
Yeah,
who doesn't
that's awesome.
like Lego with their kids? It's just Lego, but it's virtual. So you've got just unlimited bricks and animals, and
Yeah.
it's all running around. And it is really nice to be able to share that space. It's totally safe and totally healthy. And yeah, so being a retro gaming dad it's a blessing. There's no doubt about it. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so keep going on with whatever you were sort of going to say there.
Oh, so I was just saying too, it's even like, you know, he wants to play like the Minish Cap for the Game Boy Advance. And it's like, that kid wants to play Legend of Zelda, let's go. Like
Yeah.
I want to make him love the Legend of Zelda as much as I do, you
Yeah.
know, and I agree. Is there a problem with kids playing video games 24/7? I mean, yeah, probably. I do think there is, but you know, as a dad, you have the responsibility to set limits and boundaries, and as long as you're able to kind of fall through those things, like I don't think there's anything wrong with kids playing video games as long as they're, you know, making sure that you know what they're doing, how long they're doing it for, all those types of things. And sometimes I do that. I'm like, okay, buddy, it's the end of the time, it's the end of the road, time to put it away now. And he doesn't like that, but you know, that's the rule, that you knew that we set the timer, you did all those things.
Yeah, that's right.
So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But the fact that he's starting to, I think the thing I like about it the most is that he is into the things that I am into.
Beautiful.
You know, and it's kind of the first time he's really done that. You know, oh, we'll play with trains, we'll play with whatever. But this is the first time that, and he loves AC/DC, which is out of nowhere. All of a sudden he's like, hey, Dad, can we play AC/DC? I'm like, absolutely, we can play AC/DC.
Yeah, good.
So yeah,
AC/DC is really good because there's a whole bunch of really cool cover bands. Like there's one from somewhere in the US, and it's called Hayseed, D-Seed, and they're all like kind of like you know, kind of like, I guess, Jim Bob redneck kind of overalls.
Oh, funny. I've never heard
and they
of that.
play like kind of like the guitar, which is like a broomstick with a string and banjos and stuff. So check that out. And you might be like, I get it. And I get it. And that's you know, a little kind of mind melding there. Yeah. Does your wife game?
She does not. I mean, we play like Mario Party. You know, we'll play Mario Party, we'll play Mario Kart, but other than that, you know, growing up, she and her brother played Pokemon, you know, just because we were all in that Pokemon era.
Yeah.
And they played PlayStation, like Spyro, Banjo-Kazooie, but that's about it. You know, she really didn't get into it.
Yeah.
She loves music. You know, her and I share a common bond of just loving music and bands and concerts and all those types of things. But yeah,
I remember those.
Really I know, right? Yeah. It's been a long time.
Yeah. I'm very fortunate that at the moment my wife is pretty keen on Tetris. My first console I bought was a NES off a buddy, and I bought a Tetris cart and I played that, and then I found Tetris Party Deluxe on the Wii, and so you can play against each other. You get the junk and stuff, and it is a really proud moment when I come home, maybe after a ride or something on my bike, and I come home and she's on the couch playing Tetris on her own.
That's hilarious.
That's
awesome.
And my wife's really intelligent and is really, I wouldn't say she lacks imagination, but it really has to be something to kind of get her. Like I've opened her up to a lot of, you know, we've been married nearly 10 years, opened her up to a lot of sort of, you know, watching TV and shows and movies. And she's like, oh, that was kind of cool. It's nice to not be so serious. And so to get her, to actually enjoy Tetris, the puzzling and to see her like, oh, God damn it, just freaking out and watch it, and knowing that the little cogs in her brain are like blowing smoke and stuff. It's really nice. And you don't push it any further than it needs to go. You just enjoy the fact that they can understand something more about you.
Yeah, she gets the most intense she gets about gaming is Mario Party. You know, any of the mini games, and she usually beats me at Mario Party for whatever. I just have never been good at it. It's just one of those games. I like it. It's fun. It's whatever. But she always beats me at Mario Party.
Yeah.
You know, Mario Kart, I usually beat her, you know, but when it comes to Mario Party, she almost
Yeah.
wins those mini games almost every time. So
Yeah. And if you know what's good for you, you'll keep it that way.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I guess just sort of getting back to the modding. You got some goals? I mean, do you think, I mean, the cost of a Game Boy these days is kind of, it's getting up there, but have you got some goals? You got things you want to do? Are you kind of content that it's not as easy or financially viable to flip a Game Boy and, you know, make it shiny and new and stuff? Or are you sort of like, you know, I'll just collect, if I like it, I keep it. If I don't, I put it on Facebook and someone else gets to love it.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at right now. You know, if I'm gonna make the things that I want to make is kind of what it comes is kind of where I'm at now. For a while, I felt like I was getting a lot of people asking me to make things for them, you know,
Yeah.
local people and online and stuff.
That's nice.
And it's cool, you know, having someone reach out to me and do it, but it also is this kind of added layer of, oh man, I hope they like it. And what if they don't? What if I, you
Yeah.
know? So I second guess myself a little bit when it comes to those things. And when I was doing that a little bit more often, I wasn't really enjoying it so much. And so I kind of like finished off the last ones that I was doing. And then I was just like, I'm just going to do these for me now. And so I find the shells that I like, and I want to do it the way that I want to do it this time. You know, maybe I want to do one of the TFT screens instead of the IPS. I'm going to do one of those this time instead. And so I think for me, it's more about making the ones that I want to make. If I decide that I'm going to sell it, then I'll try it. But if I don't sell it, I'm also not super hurt by it either, because I like it, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I'm at with it now. And mostly when it comes to just the goals. And I was talking to T from Peg City 8-Bit about 2021 and my goals for Retrogaming Dad and stuff. And I think my goals really is just kind of growth. I want to grow the account even more, and I want to collaborate more. You know, like these things. I love this.
Yeah.
You know, I think that this is a perfect example of the community kind of coming together and collaborating. So I think that those are my goals for this year, is just kind of growing the account more and collaborating with some other people and get to know them a little bit more than I do now. So
I have two things to say. The first thing is about like not selling and don't caring. I've got a Game Boy Color which I bought off eBay for like 150 Australian, which is dirt cheap for a color, reshelled with a Ben Van Aioli already in it. And I was oh my God, I can't believe I won this. And he sent me the old shell and everything. I was just already nice. It was his childhood thing. And then I was like, I actually don't like it because the screen's just a bit small. I want to do the new OSD LCD. And I put it up on Facebook and that for like pretty cheap, like 165 bucks. It's too cheap. Like, what's wrong with it? I'm like, I want to move it on. Someone else can love it. It's fine. And after 2 days, I was like, no, I'm not selling it. And I just pulled it off and I kept it. You know, I couldn't get rid of it. So I think I tried, but I couldn't. I like what you said before about this kind of stuff, collaborating, coming together. The people I've sort of approached, you know, yes, a DM on Instagram can be a bit like, what do you want? And people have been a little bit reluctant to sort of respond and commit, and that's fine. And that's fine.
Okay.
Once you get a couple of kind of episodes down, people start to realize that my intention really is to just get people to sort of come together. And, you know, I do listen to a lot of gaming podcasts, and it astounds me how grown adults will behave over stuff. And I'm like, this doesn't need to be here. Let's not do that. Let's just hang out and find out what we got in common. So hopefully people do appreciate that this is just about, you know, you're just dropping names left, right, and center. And so anybody that listens is like, who's this Peg City guy? And who's this, that? And oh, great. You know, and if I can be somewhere in the chain that gets someone into the modding, or get someone to buy a screen, or get someone to buy a bespoke one from yourself or someone else, then my job is done here. I'm more than happy, because I know somewhere someone's happy, and that's really all. That's all that matters, to be honest. In this day and age, we sort of just got to stay on top of it. Yeah. I guess at this point we might sort of, some of the you've dropped a lot of names, so. And I'll try and get some, well, I won't try. I'll get some information off you later, put some notes up, and people can kind of link to them and things like that. But just roll off the top there a few of the names of people that kind of, I guess, maybe inspired you, or you think are up and coming, or, you know, the ones that you sort of think, you know what, this guy's really good and I work well with him? Yeah, go for that.
Yeah, I've got kind of I you know, on Instagram you can have close friends. You can kind of label them a little bit differently,
Yeah.
and so over time I kind of just like went out there and was like, you know what, I would put them as a close friend. I don't know if they're actually a close friend, but I'm gonna
Yeah.
put them
Yeah.
there.
They have
You
no
know,
choice.
yeah, at this point.
Yeah.
So like I said, T is Peg City 8-bit, and he's awesome. He's just a cool guy. Every time I've had a question, I mean, he and I probably talk daily now, at this point, just about modding, and if we have questions about stuff and ideas about different photography shots and whatever. Like, he's just a super cool dude. T from Peg City 8-bit. Obviously Natalie from Natalie the Nerd. She's
Yeah.
amazing. I
Yeah,
mean,
I've
she
spoken
is.
to Nat. I think she's going to be on it. She's just like levels above. And I sort of said to her, I just need to ease people into the concept of just enjoying
Yeah.
stuff before we melt their brains. Okay, so let's just,
Yeah.
I'll get back to you. Thank you so much for your time. And she's really good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, she's amazing. And you know, beyond being brilliant or whatever, she's just a kind human, you know, which
She is.
is something that I really appreciate.
Yeah.
Julianne has Game Boy, and I might be pronouncing that incorrectly. I think it's gameboy.7777. She's based out of Germany, and she's awesome. Julianne's one. Trey from TL Hand Modding. He's a guy that I think he started about the same time I do, and he does a lot of custom, like custom labels for like Pokemon games and things like that. So Trey's really awesome. He and I talk pretty often too. Kelly, obviously, Next Stop Please. She's amazing.
Oh yeah, isn't she?
Oh, she's amazing. You know,
I was looking at her stuff today.
I would say, I think my biggest inspiration, I kind of fanboy over him, which he probably wouldn't like that I said that, but is Adam James. James who plays. I mean, everybody in the community knows Adam, and how same thing as Natalie. He's just a great human. You know, most of our conversations, is about Game Boys, but mostly it's about, you know, everything else that's going on, and I just appreciate how he approaches modding and what he does. And you know, he says pretty upfront, like, he started this to feel better about himself, and then it turned into this really awesome thing that he didn't expect. And so I really commend him for kind of being an inspiration, even if he didn't want to be, you know.
Too bad.
And I think that that's really commendable, because because so many of us just really appreciate what he does and what he stands for and everything like that. Marky Pie does all of like the pie builds, and he's just a stellar human. You know, he hypes you up no matter who you are. If you've got 2 followers or 20,000, Marky Pie is there for you. You know, and so those are some of my favorite accounts. Probably are those guys, and I talk with them pretty regularly. And David from Nintendo DIY. I mean, there's so many that I forget about half of them most of the time. You know,
it's also
talking about it.
I actually enjoy the photography of it too. Like, I used to build all the Gunpla Japanese robots and things like that, and used to going back to kids, like doing that around my Instagram. It's like it's been really awesome to look over it's almost like a diary. You can sort of see. Mine's never been about family. I'm a little bit sort of personal. I've got a very small footprint. I'm allowed to put my mug on it every now and then, but you know, it's generally just hobby stuff. And I think I've got a couple of thousand followers, but it's because I've been through 7 hobbies in the last 10 years. And you kind of gather a bit of moss as the stone kind of rolls a little bit here and there, you know. And you know, I see my daughter will take, you know, some little Pokemon figures down to the river where we take the dog, and with her old phone, and she's like, look at this, you know. And it's just really great to see that sort of stuff. But you just, yes, it's one thing to kind of get a Game Boy and put it on the table and make the light right, but I enjoy photography. So when I see people kind of just putting it out there and using a bit of filters and saying, hey, I love this thing right now and I want you to know about it, and that's fine. That's, again, I can those pictures will talk to me personally about, it's nice just to have a thing that makes you happy. And it's nice to have 23 things and
Yeah.
6 other things and whatever, however many it takes you to feel happy. And
Yeah.
because like you said, this is the one. Oh no, this is the one, and this is the
Yeah.
one. Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Oh,
There.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I look at some accounts and I'm like, I just can't believe this guy has so many Game Boys, because it's like resale after resale. I'm like, I hope these dudes are moving these on, because that dude's got a problem.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how's he afford it?
I just, yeah, the account that actually regularly build and sell, build and sell, build and sell, Greg Game Changer Mod, he's been around for a long time, and
Yeah.
that's his whole gig now. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh man, if I could do that, that would be awesome. Or 8-bit aesthetics, is probably another one of those accounts that it's huge, and that's just what they do, is build and sell and build and sell and build and sell, which is great for them, and I'm glad that they can do it. But I don't think that's ever going to be me, and that's okay. I just like to build them, and if every once in a while I sell one, sure, whatever, but that's not really my gig.
Yeah, there's a guy, obviously, well, not obviously, if you see his account, he's in the UK. I think he's opened a store called the Game Boy Shack.
Yeah.
Like, dude, balls of steel.
Yeah,
like,
it's amazing.
And I think his timing has just been so unfortunate, but he's just like pushed through, filled the shop out, and I just feel like, oh my god, I would love to go to that store. Like, that's a kid in a candy store right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you see those levels of commitment, you're like, that person is just bonkers about Game Boys, and I'm sure he's like, every time one walks out the door, it's a bit like selling a kitten. Oh, look after it, like, and don't feed it after midnight, and blah 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 blah, and all this stuff, So that sort of stuff is super inspiring, because I keep going on about it, someone's going to go home and just be happy. That's Before you were talking about I can't remember who it was, like carts, like, it blows me away the amount of people that are doing like custom carts and things like that. That's a whole different level of custom.
Yeah, that was Trey from TL Hand Modding, and he's really about his Photoshop skills at that point, right? I think lately his big thing has been taking the original kind of Pokemon looking labels and making them like the shiny variants. And so he's got, and it's like, it looks so stock, like Nintendo should have made it this way in the first place.
Hire that guy.
Yeah, so that's been super cool to see that. And I mean, all of the kind of new game development. I know esoteric Sean is gone away from modding a little bit, and he's really focused on game development. And I think he posted today that he was out shooting a commercial for his brand new game that he's, Nutmeg, I think is what it's called. And the fact that I think that's maybe the next evolution, right? Like I know Spacebot Interactive is working diligently to create new games for the Game Boy. And it's like, it's so cool and different, and for people like us that want to play original hardware on the original games, it's so cool
the homebrew
to do stuff.
The homebrew stuff's just a whole new, it's like time machine stuff, because you're taking this old hardware that now everybody knows almost everything about, and have this ability to really manipulate it. And like, I pay a lot of attention to homebrew on a whole bunch of older consoles. I have invested in a couple of homebrew games, and I'm like, there's one on Mega Drive called Xenocrisis, and it's like a kind of Smash TV Robotron style kind of shooter, where there's two of you and you kind of top down and you're running around, and it's like, you can feel there's a freshness to it, but it's just done the justice to the hardware, and it's just spot on. And when I see stuff like with Game Boys, I'm like, cool. I'm going to take this gear that's 20 years old, and then someone who's 23, 24 with just so much intelligence is now creating a game. And I'm like, I'm taking old tech, new brains, and having a whole new experience. That is great. The homebrew stuff's bonkers. Cool. All right. Well, I can definitely say there's a whole bunch of people there that you've mentioned that are really showing you what you can do. And I guess the beauty of it is that you don't have to go and make a homebrew game. You don't have to mold your own shells and buttons. It's already done for you. You just have to be positive about it. throw your wallet out the door and,
Yeah.
and just buy a bunch of the crap and put it together. It's that
Yeah.
easy. Screens are bonkers. Like as soon as you put an LCD in a Game Boy, that's a whole new level.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, you got anything else you want to plug while you've got the world's attention, sort of thing?
Man,
Plug
I
yourself,
don't
man.
know.
I
It's a
mean,
lot
that's
of
why I
pressure
got
on
you.
that one. No, well, yeah. I mean, it's funny because I started this account with zero expectations. It was start of COVID. I wanted to do something. I popped Retrogaming Dad. Sure, that's kind of cool. I didn't think anything of it. I really had the intention of just posting, maybe I'll build a Game Boy, maybe I'll post something about my Nintendo 64. But for me, it was always, I kind of went into it going, I don't know if this is going to be a thing. And I didn't plan it to be a thing. And then it just kind of steamrolled a little bit, and once I started discovering accounts and really kind of diving into it, I really fell in love with the community. Really, I mean, truly and honestly. And I know for a lot of people that sounds kind of silly, an online community, but and I would have said 10 years ago, I probably would have said the same thing. Like, can you really get to know people online? And like now I'm like, yeah, you absolutely can. And for some of us right now, it's the only way you can do it, And
Absolutely.
so I think for myself, the retro gaming dad kind of persona that it's become for me has been really profound in the last 6 to 9 months, just because of how the world has been, right? And how I've seen my wife, my kid, and my parents for the past year, and that's about it. But through Instagram and everybody that I've met through this account specifically, and to be honest, how quickly it's grown for me. I never would have thought I was going to get as many followers as I did. And for me, it's not necessarily about the followers, but about who I've maybe inspired to do things differently too. So I really have enjoyed this Instagram kind of journey that I've gone on, and I am hoping to kind of keep it going after this and after COVID into real life, and see where to kind of go from there and how it evolves kind of further. So yeah, it's Retro Gaming Dad. I love it. It's a big part of
it'd be
what I've been
amazing for
doing.
you. Be amazing for you guys, when you finally do weather the storm and the cons start back up, and Midwest Gaming, or there's one down in Portland, and all that sort of stuff. And it's like all of a sudden there's like 30 of you off the West Coast that or wherever, they all turn up at a convention with just all this Game Boy stuff, and people are like, where did all this come from? It's like, we're just being keeping to ourselves, doing our own thing, being happy. Please don't come here and wreck it. Just enjoy it, sort of thing, Yeah, amazing. And Instagram is I've been doing it for a few years, just because there's not really, it's going to happen, but there's not really the opportunity for a conversation. And so it's kind of just like flipping through a magazine, and you might read the headline and look at the picture. You're like, yeah, I might cook that, or, oh, she is with him now. It's just easy, you don't have that Facebooky kind of crap where people just want to be snarky. And I use my Facebook much like Instagram. I follow some groups, I never comment, and I'm like,
me too.
That's kind of cool, and that's kind of cool, and I don't get the news. Well, in Australia, you can't get news now because all that's bonkers, eh?
Crazy.
Yeah, I know. I'm fine with it because it doesn't affect me at all. I just kind of go to the page as if I would care. Yeah. So look, I totally appreciate where you're coming from as far as just getting in there. I think in the way you feel and response you've got is an indication of, the grassroots sincerity that you're putting into your account, and you're just doing it, and other people enjoy doing it with you. And that's a good thing, Cool. All right, mate. Well, I really appreciate you. Like I said, Maiden Voyage. We're back at the dock. We made it. We didn't hit the iceberg. She didn't sink. And let's go hit the bar and back on the jetty and grab another cold one, sort of things. I really do appreciate your time. We're probably going to do this again. I'm happy to cycle back around to anybody that's got things to say, and keep it all positive and all that sort of stuff. So from here down in Australia, really appreciate your time, and really look forward to sort of seeing how you progress and you never know, you might be knocking out something homebrew in no time, and that would be fantastic. Who knows?
I think that's the eventual goal. I think eventually I'm going to get there, but who knows? That might be a couple years down the road. But thanks again for welcoming me aboard, and allowing me to have the opportunity to talk about what I've been doing and plug some people that have been influential to me. And I hope that they join you on here too. And I'd love to see more and more and more of this kind of happen as we go throughout more time, just to kind of get some more personality behind everything that you see on Instagram.
Yeah. Hopefully we can sort of stay out of the weeds a bit, not to be just another retro gaming podcast about this is the game I don't like, and I hope they release this. There's already a lot of good stuff going on that we can just talk about and just hang out and all sort of stuff. All right, bud. Thanks so much for your time. We're going to wrap it up there. And for the listeners out there, thank you so much for staying with us. We're back at the dock. Everybody is welcome to depart. And thank you for joining us on the Maiden Voyage. And we will catch you next time with another very interesting person in the retro gaming community. Adios.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
No worries, mate. Thank you.